K1, you're our only hope.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Welcome into Southwest Bias, live from Studio K, brought to you by our friends at Circle K. Become a member of the Inner Circle today. Hope has been on my mind a lot. The lack of it at times recently. We've seen the Phoenix Suns disappoint and have to go into complete retool mode. We've seen the Diamondbacks, who have basically made it clear that Chase Field is a spirit Halloween and everything's for sale. That somebody will be moving in there soon, and it's not Major League talent. And we're sitting here wondering, where is the hope? What is going to happen here in Arizona sports? And it reminded me a few months back on the program, I welcomed in Coach Dar. She is a motivational coach that works with pro athletes in town. And she had this to say to me.
And I had to regroup and I reframed as opposed. So this is what we both are doing. Like, you reframe the situation to say, here's the thing, just like I just said to you, some point we always have to remain hope. And hope stands for hold on, pain ends. At some point, this will end and we will have victory. And Arizona will be celebrating because it has, and we've seen glimmers of it, and it will again. And I want people to stay focused on the best stories are the ones that overcome the most adversity. So even as fans, you have to believe in the underdog story because it's what gives you hope. And we have seen some unbelievable stories of teams, even outside, obviously, of Arizona, that it's happened to.
Hold on, pain ends. God, I hope it's this fall because it has been rough out here on these Arizona sports streets. And I get it. We got to stay optimistic. The best stories are the ones that we don't expect. We've talked about that on this program and how that's been the way of Arizona sports. That maybe it's even our calling card is being the underdog and succeeding. But man, we've been holding on for a very long time. We've been holding on, hoping that pain ends. And I think Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. could be our saviors in that. They would be an underdog story if they go out and surprise. K1 it could be a great comeback story. And we've seen flashes of it where this guy has shown MVP quality talent on the field, that he's been able to make those plays that make you go, holy hell, how did that happen? Do we all remember when they were playing the Las Vegas Raiders and that 20-second scramble before he got the ball into the end zone? Guy's special. And he's a year and a half off of a major injury. I think that this is the year where he can take that leap. He can help us end that pain. We've held on, and I think we're getting closer. And part of the reason is he's now part of a dynamic duo with Marvin Harrison Jr. We talked about it the other day, what he's doing at camp. I don't care if he's doing it in shorts, in flip-flops, in friggin' pajama pants. If you're making one-handed grabs like he has, if you're bulked up like he has and getting separation against defensive backs, and I don't care if it's your own defensive backs that maybe aren't the most elite in the NFL. He's showing that he's ready to take that leap too. These two guys combined, I think, can save us from what we've been going through. Can save us from the disappointments, the expectations that aren't met. Do they win a Super Bowl? Probably not this year, but can they actually bring us some joy? Can they bring us that excitement that we've longed for out there at State Farm Stadium? I think they're 100% ready to bring that to the table. They have a defensive front that's so improved than it was last year. Jonathan Gannon in year 3 is prepared. I mean, I've been so impressed with Jonathan Gannon and what he's able to do in the conversations briefly that I've had with him, in the interviews he's done with Johnny and Bo, with what he says at press conferences and what you've seen on the field. It feels like that guy is a natural born leader that will be able to get the most out of Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel like he's probably put the pressure on Drew Petzing to find a way to make that offense work. Hold on. Pain ends. And I think the Cardinals could do it because they're not burdened with the massive weight of expectations that we saw from the Suns or even the Diamondbacks, who, 2 years removed from the World Series, everybody thought this was the year they come back. Corbin Burns is going to change everything, right? There's still an immense amount of skepticism when it comes to the Cardinals. I think that's good. I don't want to be the team that's expected to win everything. I don't want to be the favorite. Because I think being the underdog is one thing that actually could help. Kyler Murray operating as somebody that's not expected to be that guy, people looking at it thinking he's on the hot seat and this is going to be the year that makes or breaks his time in Arizona, I think that he's ready to take that and own that and put together a complete season. Offensive line is ready to help keep him healthy too, I think. And he's talking about using his legs more, but strategically. And that can't be anything but good because we've seen the magic that he can make being that, that jazz musician out there, just making it up as he goes, can be special. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has that ability to be that guy that can go out there and make those fantastic catches. Bring that deep ball back into this offense. Give Kyler Murray that guy that he really hasn't had since DeAndre Hopkins. And really, what did he have? Prime DeAndre Hopkins for a season? What was the best thing we got out of that? The Hail Murray, probably. That was probably the best moment. This is prime to help us move out of what we've been feeling. Hold on, pain ends. And I think it's going to happen soon. But maybe that's just my Southwest bias. We've got Kevin behind the Mac today. The best hair we've ever had behind the Mac on this program. And probably the best beard. We've had some sketchy beards with Noah and Damon and even Shane. How are you, Kevin?
Doing good, doing great. I'm happy I could be the best beard in Southwest Bias history, considering I don't think...
Second best.
Okay, fair enough.
Producer-wise.
Fair enough. Kyle didn't get the privilege to host this show during his time, so I think I dodged that competition there. But yeah, feeling good, feeling great on a Thursday.
Red Beard's tough to compete with.
Oh, incredibly tough to compete with.
Tough to compete with. Do you feel that the pain will end and that Kyler Murray and K1 could be the guys to deliver us from evil?
Yes, and I think all of our PHNX Cardinals listeners and viewers should agree that there is some warranted buzz heading into this season, but also that skepticism that you're talking about as well, Espo. Like when I talk to my friends about my belief in the Cardinals this upcoming year, they meet me with their normal Arizona skepticism, their Southwest bias, if you will, right? So I understand where you're coming from, but I do think that of all the teams in the Valley, I do feel like the Cardinals should offer a ton of hope to Arizona sports fans, in addition to the Merc. Shout out to the Merc.
If you don't know Kevin, he's the host and producer of our Wildcats program. And I got to ask, well, we're on the topic of hope. I'm going to put it in your world. Can Brett Brennan's guys, can U of A football give us any hope this year? Is that a possibility? Is that Noah Fafita behind me as well? Did you sneak that in there? Can he give us some hope?
I did sneak that in there. I also stuck a U of A Brandon Bills hat over there, over our left shoulder there.
That's fine. I'm all for the I usually put that up there too, but can I get any hope? Because that's another team that has crushed my hope since my days down there with John Makovic as coach when I started, and then Mike Stoops. So can I have any hope with Brett Brennan's crew as well?
Look, I think Tommy Lloyd is building an absolute juggernaut of a basketball team.
That is the most U of A answer ever. Wait till basketball season.
Okay, well, no, but listen, in the conversation that we're having about, like, can Brett Brennan in Arizona give Arizona sports fans as a whole hope? I don't know if that should be the bar. We're trying to make a bowl game in Tucson. You know what I mean?
Isn't that some hope, though?
There's hope.
6-6 in a bowl game, some hope.
But I am saying, though, that, like, I think what Tommy Lloyd is building with the basketball team should give the casual viewer in the state of Arizona a ton of hope that they could be watching championship quality games.
Did you really just wave the white flag and say this is an ASU football state? That's what I heard. That's what I just heard.
Why are we twisting words?
Kenny Dillingham and ASU will dominate football, college football in this state, and you're giving it up because you know you can beat up on Bobby Hurley. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not necessarily.
So there's no hope in Tucson?
That's not at all what I said. I think there's hope that Arizona football can make a bowl game and have a good showing for themselves this year. But I think if you're a not involved Arizona fan and you just need hope, right? You just want to watch winning teams. Arizona's going to be trying, and God loves a trier. You know what I mean? So
what's more likely, that U of A makes a little noise in the Big 12, or that the Cardinals make a run at the Super Bowl?
Wow, I would
be a hopium dealer. Give me my fix right now.
So the question was, what's more hope? Arizona making
what's more likely?
What's more likely? Arizona making like a college football playoff type?
No, just making some noise in the Big 12. Like not being in the back of the pack, maybe having a little hope towards the tail end of the season, but being in that top 3, 4, maybe 5.
All right, top 5 in the Big 12. I think there's a higher chance that happens than the Cardinals making a Super Bowl run, just because it's so difficult to win a championship in the NFL. Only one team can do it. You're giving me 5 chances in the Big 12 there. I'm going to take my odds with the Arizona Wildcats. But I think realistically, the Cardinals should give people a lot of hope. Like you said, I think you could argue that DeAndre Hopkins was never even in his prime when he was in Arizona at all. And so I think like you kind of got the name of a DeAndre Hopkins, but maybe the ghost of what he once was. And that's also after I think he popped for some sort of, allegedly, some sort of thing there. So
Trey McBride, the best tight end that they've ever had in Cardinals history. I'm already willing to call it. So that's another weapon.
The weapons are there. I would say the continuity is getting there as well. It seems like there's belief in JG and what he has going on. We'll see with Petsing if that is the solution at OC. But yeah, I think there's a lot of hope out there in Glendale somehow.
Big shout out to Math to the Power of Joe, Jason Riley, Mar Moore, my wife, all in the chat. Hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, do that right now. Get notified when we go live every day at 11 a.m. right here on Southwest Bias. We talk a little about everything. We talked Suns yesterday, Cardinals today. We're talking Diamondbacks here in a moment. Obviously, they traded Eugenio Suarez last night. They got a gentleman named Tyler Locklear. Is that correct?
Tyler Locklear. Yeah.
I thought Heather at first. For those of you of an older vintage, that's what I thought. And she probably would be more famous than Tyler, but Tyler's now your starting first baseman. He batted a whopping 156 I believe in 45 at-bats in the major leagues. He's 24, so young, and he's going to get an opportunity to be that guy, Josh Naylor's replacement. At first, not quite sure what the team's doing. There's rumors Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly could be dealt at any moment, and that they're trying to save money so they can spend again here in the near future. I'm not sure, but what I am sure of is that I wanted to get you all a little insight about what it means to sit in that general manager seat during an MLB trade deadline and what it's like to negotiate with Mike Hazen on the other end of the line. I talked with Thad Lavine, former Twins manager, right after this on Southwest Bias. Talking about my friends at Circle K. I start my day at Circle K. All right. The second half of my morning, I drop my daughter off at school, and then I stop at Circle K. If I need gas, I do that first, but then I go inside. I get myself my caffeine, my sweet, sweet caffeine, the nectar of the gods. I pick up a couple Cokes, Coke Zeros, because I'm trying to be more svelte, no sugar in the diet. I pick up a couple Coke Zeros, and right now I found out if I get 3 of those 20-ounce bottles, I'm saving 25 cents per gallon on my next fill-up. That's one heck of a deal. But if you want 25 cents off per gallon, I got another way. You don't have to buy drinks if you don't want. You just download the Circle K app, put in your information, you're going to save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. After that, you're getting 3 cents off. Then you're going to hit that ESPO level. Yeah, I've told you about the ESPO level. Nobody will acknowledge it over there at Circle K, but once you hit it, you're going to save 5 cents off per gallon. But it's not just that. They hit you with offers, whether it's like that deal for beverages and saving money, whether it's their 40 cents off fuel days. They hit you with those offers, and all you got to do is download the Circle K app today, become an Inner Circle member for free. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. And Gila River Resorts and Casinos. I am, as I say in our audio ads, a connoisseur of the local casinos.
A connoisseur.
Not even just the local, the even Las Vegas. I spent a lot of time there. I have not found a better place than Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Wild Horse Pass is one of my favorite places to go. We do our Cardinals away watch parties there, and it is fantastic. We've done sun shows there. I've seen shows there, and I've eaten there, and I've even stayed in the hotel once for a conference. Unbelievable. You're going to love it. And I've never been to the pool, but Johnny and Bo were out there and they told me it is spectacular. I highly recommend you check them out and check out the Valley's largest sports book that they got there at Wild Horse Pass as well. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit Play at Gila for more details. Welcome back into Southwest Bias, and I am super excited to welcome in my next guest. It's Thad Lavine, former general manager with the Minnesota Twins, and now works with a guy I know well, and I apologize that you got to share a podcast with him, Ryan McDonough, on Rosters to Rings. How are you, Thad?
I'm doing great, Espo. And Ryan's been awesome to work with. His experiences from working with the Celtics and the Suns have been excellent. His media experience, he's been a guiding light for me, a mentor through the process, and a heck of a person to work with.
Well, we can talk about him off air. That's fine. So really glad to have you. And I really want to know, obviously, trade deadline day in Major League Baseball. What is it like to sit in that seat? What is it like to be in the general manager's office on deadline day? How chaotic is it? And what is that experience like for a general manager?
You know, I wish I could tell you this isn't the case, but it is true. It is very deadline driven. So, I think the numbers support that about 70% of the deals are made within 90 minutes of the deadline. About 60% are made within like 30 to 45 minutes of the deadline. So what it is these meetings are a ton of prep work, a lot of scenario playing, a lot of conversations, a lot of calls, a lot of information gathering. And then you ready on the last day to buckle up and do the best you can to stay above the fray and try to get deals done. Because when you actually agree to a deal, you then have to review medicals. You have to exchange financial statements relative to the contracts. You got to sort all those things out. Every detail has to be ironed out before the deal can be made final, and all of that has to be done before the deadline. So I think a lot of teams will wait to the end, believing they get the best offers at that time. But also, sometimes you're compromised. You're not then afforded the latitude to go through your full process of review. You've got to make snapper judgments. And so I think you trust the people in the room. You trust the information that's been provided for you, but then ultimately you have to show real judgment at the last, because sometimes these things start happening very quickly towards the deadline.
So a lot of it happens in that last 90 minutes, but how much groundwork are you laying in the weeks before that? Like, I can't imagine that a lot of deals are one call towards the end of the deadline and you're agreeing on something. I imagine it's a lot of effort leading up to that.
Well, and I think it's variable shop to shop. So I'll give you some extremes. AJ Preller is famous for being very active as the general manager of the San Diego Padres. He's a guy who literally makes 90, if not 100% of the team's calls. So he is almost handling that singularly. Most teams that I've worked with, we've divided it up amongst 3, 4, 5 people. So to your point, Espo, like let's say I would be assigned 8 teams that I'm going to nurture relationships with. I would start those conversations in spring training, find out what your needs and surpluses were going into the season. I would then check back in the first part of the season. How's the season progressing for you guys? Anything changed on your front? And then I would try to start a cadence of talking at least every month until probably 2 to 3 weeks before the deadline, at which point I would start talking on a much more frequent basis with people. Because I think one of the worst feelings for a team is to read a trade rumor and say, oh my gosh, Key Brian Hayes just got traded to the Cincinnati Reds. We didn't even know he was available. We didn't even think to ask for him. Well, you don't know unless you're having very consistent conversations. And I think the reality is, and I'm not sure if this will upset fans or energize them, but when we're making a trade, we're not calling 29 teams and asking if they have interest. We're communicating with the teams that we think have the best fit, and then we're proceeding with the ones that seem to be the most interested and aggressive. So I think that it's your responsibility as a team to divvy up those communications and responsibilities, stay consistently connected with teams throughout the course of the year. If you just start the process at the trade deadline, most likely you've missed something and you haven't laid the necessary groundwork to get an effective deal done.
Mike Hazen took out here in Arizona, took a little bit of heat earlier in the week, and I don't think rightfully so, but he said, they've taken calls on pretty much everybody. But isn't that, as a general manager, due diligence to take the call from another team, to hear what they have to say, even if your stance is, I'm not going to move off this guy? Don't you have to at least take the phone call to understand what the market is out there?
I think that's our responsibility. We have to be able to communicate effectively to the ownership group. Here are all the options we have at our disposal, not just the ones that we thought worthy of pursuit. Because sometimes we get directives from ownership that maybe lie a little bit astray from what we thought was the best move, and we can only make those moves if we've had all the conversations. So I think, to your point, and to reflect what Mike Hazen's communicating, is he's not necessarily taking certain guys to market. But when somebody picks up the phone and says, "Hey, listen, if we backed up the truck for, player X, would you guys talk about it?" I think it's incumbent upon him just to understand, like, what does that backing up of the truck constitute? Because there probably should be a deal that we would do for the vast majority of our players, because at some point it just trips the wire and it just helps the organization too much not to consider those types of deals. If you're closed-minded to those things, you'll never be presented with them. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to know all the options to help our teams, not just a narrow view of that.
When you have a team that's kind of on the cusp between competing and maybe falling back, how do you make the determination whether you're in the buyer's market or the seller's market? And how soon do you feel, as a general manager, you have to make that kind of delineation before the deadline comes up?
So I think you've got to do the best you can to objectively assess where you are in the competitive cycle. So, how many guys do you have who are going to matriculate to free agency at the end of the year? How many guys are on the backside of their control with you? How many of them, from an age perspective, are in their prime right now versus guys who are ending their prime? So I think all of that gives you some context as to where you are in the win now cycle and how much you should be pushing chips in to keep that window open versus, is it time to get a little bit aggressive and get out in front of making some moves? The other thing I would say, and I'm not sure if that question was specific to the Arizona Diamondbacks, but I think it's somewhat applicable, because the reality is, I look at them versus a team like Kansas City right now. Both teams are similarly placed in the standings. They're similarly below 500. They're similarly in the wild card race. Well, Kansas City is buying and Arizona's selling. So I think you got to look beyond just the superficial of the records and what are the underlying numbers and what do they suggest. And right now, the way Arizona is constituted is they have a kind of a wealth of potential free agents come season's end who are probably very highly valued. They've already traded one in Naylor. There's a few more that could be on the horizon here. But I also think it's circumstantial to the division. So when you play in one of the Western or Eastern divisions, there are payroll behemoths in those divisions. The Centrals don't necessarily have that. And so it's a little bit easier to make moves on the margins and change the trajectory of your competitive landscape in the American League Central and the National League Central than it is in the West or the East. So I think when you are in the West and the East, you're probably a little bit more inclined to have to take bold steps to try to compete with some of those big payroll teams. Whereas in the Central, you could be a little bit more subtle in your movements. And so that's, I think, the distinctions as I look at Kansas City and Arizona, who are in similar competitive situations right now. One's selling, one's buying. It actually makes a lot of sense to me why each of them is acting accordingly.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Did you ever directly negotiate with Mike Hazen, and what is that experience like? Say I'm a general manager calling him up here in the last few hours. What is it like to negotiate with Mike Hazen?
So, Mike Hazen has a tremendous leadership team. Ami ALLCITY is his lieutenant, great friend and partner. And so we negotiated with both of those guys. And I think they both had very similar tacks, which is to say, like, they're a little bit of a throwback. They're very scout based in terms of some of their inputs. They're very intelligent. So they're tapping into databases as well as scouts. They're also a little bit more transparent in telling you what they're prepared to do and what they're not prepared to do. A lot of general managers in today's day and age are kind of hunting good deals. I think Amiel and Mike hunt good players. And so in order to hunt good players, you have to be a little bit more transparent in what your interests are in those players and what you're prepared to do to acquire them. I think that the GMs who are really more focused on hunting good deals covet information. They're not necessarily sharing that. They would rather not get a deal done and retain the information. Mike and Amiel don't conduct themselves that way. They're willing to share a little bit of information in order to pursue the player that they really think is going to be impactful to the organization, whether that's today or in the future. I think the other thing about those two guys is they have a very clear track record of acting and being men of action. So they're either aggressively trying to help the team win today or build for the future. They rarely stand still at the deadline. If you look at their track records over the off seasons and the deadlines, they usually take measured steps towards one of those two goals, either trying to build for the immediate present or build for the future. So if I'm a fan of the Arizona Diamondbacks, I feel exceptionally emboldened with the leadership of Mike Hazen and Ami ALLCITY, who I think are two of the most intelligent guys who are leading organizations, but they're also very inclusive. They're getting a ton of information bubbled up to them. They're making very informed decisions, and they're not willing to hesitate to act. They will act, and I think that's something that fans should be very encouraged by. They're not going to sit on their hands and try to survive and secure their jobs for tomorrow. They're going to try to act today to try to help the organization thrive, whether now or in the future. And to me, as a fan, that would be very inspirational.
Final question for you. What's your best trade deadline story? What is one that you're willing to share about your experience at the deadline?
So two come to mind. One is a little bit more well-known. In 2010 with the Texas Rangers, we ended up acquiring Cliff Lee, who really changed the trajectory for the whole franchise. We ended up going to the World Series that year. But what I'm going to talk about here is the acquisition of Cole Hamels in 2015. At that time, I think we were 3 games under 500, 8 games out of first place. I think we had a negative 44 run differential, and we ended up acquiring Cole Hamels, who also had 2 more years of control after that year. So we were going to have him for 2.5 seasons. And at the press conference, the media was asking John Daniels, the general manager at the time, like, so this was a move for the future. This seems like a pretty prudent move, but you gave up a lot of prospects. He said, this wasn't a move for the future. We're going to win this division. And it was like one of those needle scratching on the record moments where everyone was like, oh my God, like he actually thinks this will help us win. And I'll be darned, from that moment forward, we went through the roof. And I think we all as executives aspire, if the team puts you in a position where you have a chance to win, you aspire to do your part to support them and hopefully build that championship culture. I think that was one of those singular, most pronounced times in my career where I saw the actions of a front office actually genuinely motivate a team. The team wasn't performing nearly as poorly as the record would suggest at that time, but the facts were the facts. We were 8 games out of first place. We ultimately went on a run after that and win the division, go into the playoffs and play Toronto. We didn't seem like we were positioned to do that. The trade poised us to strike, but the general manager's kind of confidence in the team and his bold expression of that, I think, really propelled the team forward.
Well, he is Thad Lavine, host or co-host of Rosters to Rings. He's a man that's been in the room where it happens. If you want more of that insight, listen to him and Ryan McDonough on the podcast. Thad, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Espo. Great being on.
Big thanks to Thad Lavine, and even bigger thanks to Kevin behind the Mac, making me jealous of his hair, but also making me look good on camera. Big thank you. I believe it's at Kevin Thomas Posts.
Close. Kevo Post.
Kevo Post. That's right.
KVPOSTS.
Yeah, so check him out there. You can check out the show at PHNX_sports. You can check out me at Espo. And remember, hold on. Pain ends. Maybe. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.